जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्रक से श्रीमद् His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada की, ISKCON विबुधि संस्थापक आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्रक से श्रीमद् His Divine Grace श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर प्रभुपाद की, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की, नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड श्री गिरि गोवर्धन की। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की। गंगा माई की, जमुना माई की, भक्ति देवी की, कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदायिनी श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की। कलयुग पावन हरिनाम संकीर्तन की। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की। श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की। श्री श्री रुक्मिणी द्वारकाधीश भगवान की। श्री श्री गौरनिताय भगवान की। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया की। ISKCON न्यू द्वारका धाम की। भक्ति वेदांता बुक ट्रस्ट इंटरनेशनल की। ताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to all the guests and devotees this evening. I'll speak from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 14, where Krishna speaks about the importance of tolerance. Matra sparshastu kaunteya शीत उष्ण सुख दुःखदाः आगमा आपायिनो अनित्यस् तान्तितिक्षस्व भारत. So Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, if you want to perform your duties then a very important quality you need is tolerance. Today, India has 70,000 hospitals but 2 million temples. So one may wonder, why do you need so many temples in society? So all these different institutions like the temples and the spiritual places, they are all trying to cope with and provide solution to one of the greatest experiences all of us are trying to avoid, which is fear. Ahar, Nidra, Bhay, Maithun. The four experiences every human being and animal goes through is eating, sleeping, defending and mating. Prabhupada also translates defending as fearing. And the unique feature is we can only engage in eating, sleeping and mating for a limited period of time. But fearing is an emotion one goes through 24/7. So in one sense, if the world is filled with institutions and services which provide solution to eating, which provide solution to sleeping, which provide solution for mating, so we need institutions also which will provide solution for fearing. And that is where spirituality comes into the picture, because as per the Gita, when Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, the greatest cause of fear all of us experience is because of only one word. The cause of fear is change. Any prospect of change creates fear within our heart. So therefore, the change may span across Atma, Jaya, Suta, Agara, Pashu, Dravina Bandhushu, Rajye. Changes in the body, changes in relationship within the family with the husband or the wife, changes with Suta, with children and how they are doing, Agara with respect to the house, Pashu with respect to vehicle, Dravina with respect to wealth, Bandhushu with respect to social acceptance, social rejection, Rajye with respect to one's area of influence. There could be change with respect to all of these, because material life is all about trying to develop a relationship and secure a stable, unchanging relationship with these 8, which is ironical because all these 8 are subjected to constant change. And so material life is all about constantly trying to arrest the changes which inevitably happen within these 8. I visited a friend of mine in a ICU. He got a heart attack. And I asked him, why did you get this heart attack? And he said, someone who was younger to me by 2 levels was promoted above me. And I couldn't handle it. So for someone who is not affected, it may seem, what's the big deal? But it's a change. And that change has its impact. One of our friends went to a conference and he got somebody's business card. The business card had that person's name, and below that was written his educational qualification, PhD BF. He said, what is this BF? He said, PhD but fail. He said, what is this strange? He said, my father wanted me to be PhD. Why? Because my cousin was a PhD. And they said, if you are not a PhD in our family, it will look bad. So under pressure, I enrolled for the PhD, and after 3 years realized I am not cut out for PhD. So therefore, when I dropped out, they said, but you must go to the conferences because they are going and they are going. So I thought if I don't have PhD written in my card, people will throw me out. So I wrote PhD and to be honest, added BF. But you know what? Most people think that BF is a degree beyond PhD. So we had a, 5-star hotel in Mumbai called Hotel President. Just outside Hotel President, somebody started selling, samosas by putting one 4-wheeled hand cart. And he called it Hotel Vice President. And his marketing pitch was, if you can't afford the president, come to Vice President. So one of the greatest causes of anxiety we see is people are trying to cope up with the change which is being imposed upon them. And the entire Gita was spoken to Arjuna when he was experiencing the greatest change unexpectedly. And believe me, Arjuna was in a day and age which was million times slower than what we are living in. But then Krishna brought Arjuna's chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona. And that was a change Arjuna did not expect. Because as long as Arjuna was seeing Duryodhana, he was inspired to fight. It was very clear, Duryodhana is my enemy. I am a warrior must kill enemy. Equation was simple. Suddenly Krishna brings chariot in front of Bhishma and says, kill him. So Arjuna suddenly starts thinking, he is an enemy but he is also grandfather. And if he is grandfather, I am grandson. How can grandson kill grandfather? Then Krishna brings in Drona and says, we have one more to the mix, teacher. So Arjuna is thinking, he is teacher, I have to respect the teacher. How can I kill the teacher? Because I am a student. So suddenly at that moment Arjuna became confused between multiple identities. His identity as a warrior was clashing with his identity as a student, was clashing with his identity as a disciple and a grandson. So all these identities were at war with each other. So the reason Gita was spoken on the battlefield is because Krishna wants to highlight and underline this principle that the real conflicts need to be resolved within first. And after you successfully negotiate those conflicts within, then only you are capable to fight the conflicts without. And therefore, the conflict which paralyzes action is conflict with respect to our identity. So Arjuna's swadharma, occupation, was to fight. Arjuna's swabhava, nature, was to fight. But in spite of having the nature to fight and the occupation to fight, when Arjuna suddenly saw in front of him Bhishma and Drona, these two identities were not sufficient for him to overcome the complexity which was caused in his mind by all these conflicts. And therefore Krishna had to reveal to Arjuna a higher level of identity, a deeper level of identity, his Swarupa, which is a soul, beyond his Swadharma and beyond his Swabhava. And therefore, Krishna is revealing through the Bhagavad Gita that no matter how successful you are, because Arjuna was a very successful warrior, successful student, he was a gold medalist in Dronacharya's Institute of Technology. He won straight A's all the time. He never lost a battle. Arjuna got Miss Universe as his wife, Draupadi. Arjuna is known as Dhananjay. He conquered wealth from all over the world. He had everything going for him in life. But Krishna is saying that I will 100% put you in situations in life where all the memories of your past successes and your skills, your present skills and your past track record is not going to come to your rescue. That is the time when you realize that I have the skill, but maybe I have lost the will. And so Krishna spoke at that particular point in time to a person who was highly skilled but who lost all his will. And the Gita was spoken, and it took only 1 hour for Arjuna to hear the Gita. And by speaking the Gita, Krishna did not change Arjuna's skill set. Krishna only helped Arjuna change his perspective. So today, we are living in a society where mental health is a challenge, depression is an issue, and the pill becomes a priority. The Gita was spoken so that Arjuna can change his perspective. So therefore, wisdom helps us in changing our perspective. Understanding that modern education system is focused on success, but ancient wisdom is focused on happiness, because the difference between success and happiness is success is to get what you like and happiness is to like what you get. And therefore, the entire priority in modern times is how you can be successful. And very few people are sharing on what you will do if someone else becomes successful. And when I was in college, I experienced a similar situation where one of my friends tried to commit suicide, and he used to get pretty good marks in his college. And we were all shocked, why did he try to commit suicide? When we asked him, he said, I would always get the gold medal, and this time I got the silver medal. We couldn't handle it. So I said, Baba, people are dying to enter IIT, and you are inside IIT trying to die. Doesn't make sense. And in the same college, in the same exam, 4 or 5 of my other friends, they failed in 3 or 4 subjects. But they were moving around the campus peacefully, blissfully, blessing others. Relax. Life is cool. And I was shocked, and I looked at them and said, you guys are so shameless. You have failed in 4 or 5 subjects. You are moving around peacefully as if nothing happened. How can you be so cool? And they said, our philosophy in life is very simple. Entering college is our job. Taking us out of the college is college's job. So why should we be in anxiety? So therefore, the perspective is very important, and Krishna is telling Arjuna that you have to begin the change of perspective later. Before you begin changing your perspective, you have to be in a position to handle that change as you begin to change your perspective. And for that, you need to stand on the foundation of tolerance. Because if you do not have enough tolerance, then you will not be able to go through the process of what is required to handle that change. So therefore, Krishna, as soon as he begins speaking the Gita, within 2 to 3 verses, he comes to Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya. Arjuna, you need to be tolerant. And you need to understand that stress or anxiety is caused because of a gap between expectation and reality. And therefore, you need to tolerate. And that's what Bhagavad Gita is teaching. So the Gita is meant to drive home this principle that there is Prakriti, nature, Kala, time, Karma, which is activity. But beyond that, there is Jiva, which is the source of all of this, which is driving all of this. And above the Jiva, there is Ishvara, the supreme controller. And therefore, when Srila Prabhupada came to London and some reporter asked him in a challenging tone, "Why you have come to London?" And Prabhupada said, "Well, for so many years, the British came and took away so much wealth from India, but they forgot to take the most precious jewel from India, the Bhagavad Gita. I have come to give home delivery." And since that time till today, ISKCON has distributed more than 550 million pieces of Bhagavad Gita and allied literature so far, all over the world. So that is Srila Prabhupada's transcendental book distribution key. So I was distributing Gita in the local train in Mumbai, and I showed the Gita to one gentleman. He looked at the Gita and he said, "Is this Gita for free?" I said, "No, this is for 70 rupees. He looked at me and said, "Krishna spoke Gita to Arjuna free. Why you are charging?" I said, "Krishna spoke in Kurukshetra, this is Mumbai, 70 rupees is transport charge." But you first try to understand why he spoke. Because Arjuna was paralyzed because of the sudden change which he was experiencing. And therefore, spiritual places like temples are hospitals where we come to learn the technique of how to cope with the pain caused by change. There will be prosperity, there will be adversity. It will be beyond our control. But in the midst of prosperity and adversity, how can I maintain an unchanging attitude of service? So therefore, the prayer which we chant is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Which means divine energy of the Lord, Hare, all attractive Krishna, please engage me in your service. Please engage me in your divine service in the midst of prosperity and adversity. And therefore, we begin the day with a prayer, and the purpose of the temple is to teach those who come the three ways by which your consciousness can remain unchanging in the midst of all the changes which will inevitably be imposed upon you through the day. How you begin the day and how you end the day is most important in maintaining your consciousness in a balanced manner. So therefore, all traditions, whether they are Hindus, Christians, Muslims, Jews, whatever, all traditions speak about prayer in the morning, which basically is to acknowledge that in the midst of all the changes, three things will not change: the soul, the Supreme Soul, and the relationship between the soul and Supreme Soul of service. These three will never change no matter what. These three will remain constant, and that's basically the idea of prayer when we are praying and we are chanting this Mahamantra. So therefore we are teaching people, you begin the day with this prayer to be engaged in service. So someone will say, what will I benefit by engaging in this service? So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, by engaging in this service, you will get inspired to engage in more service. And as you engage in more service, your focus remains on how I can find service in every situation, whether there is prosperity or adversity. And then finally, if you continue your life like this, at the moment of death, you are actually able to go beyond this life and enter into an eternal life of service. Because beyond death, you will attain that which you have been searching for all life. If you whole life you have been searching for pleasure of the body, at the time of death when the body is taken away, what will you get? If whole life you have been searching for avoiding pain of the body, at the time of death there is greatest pain, what will you do? But if your entire life in the midst of pleasure and pain you have been searching for service, service and service, that's the only thing which can go beyond death. And therefore one transcends pleasure and pain and goes into the spiritual abode. So in our temples in Chowpatty in India, we have like 4,000-5,000 people who come for festivals. And when they are standing in a long line waiting for the prasadam, food, sometimes they are in anxiety. Will I get my plate of prasadam by the time I reach the counter? Because it's such a long line. But there is greater anxiety in the hearts of those who are serving. Because the server is thinking, I will only get after all the 3,000-4,000 eat. So out of anxiety, the server starts giving lesser quantity, trying to save for oneself. And people come and complain, tell your server he is giving sabji like chutney. So how do we remove his phobia? We prepare a plate in advance for him and keep the plate right next to him. While the server is serving and he is in anxiety, he looks at a plate and gets confidence that if I keep serving, my future is bright. After we make the plate, he starts giving double. And people tell him, Arey, save for yourself also. And he says, Arey, Vaishnav Seva is real duty. And he gets so much of confidence. We had a student who was always preaching day and night, spreading the message in the campus, in medical college. And I would tell him, Baba, you study also. You are supposed to be doctor. What medicine you will give? He says, no, I have faith in Krishna. He will pass me. I said, you are putting too much on him. You also have to make your efforts. He said, no, I have heard your lecture. You have said Krishna always protect devotee. I have faith in Krishna, I have faith in you. I said, now don't put it on me. You have to pass the exam, Baba. So one day before exam, he is standing in front of the deities. One day before. Half an hour is going on praying. I got worried. I asked him, what are you praying? He said, I am praying to the Lord. My dear Lord, everybody in the campus knows I am Hare Krishna devotee. The future of Hare Krishna preaching in the campus depends on you now. You take care. I said, my God, you are negotiating with the Lord. I am not negotiating, I am just being honest. If I fail, everybody will think, oh, this Hare Krishna is useless. Let him see what he does. So then he went for the exam and then miraculously he passed. It was the biggest sensational news in the whole campus. On the day the results came, I had a lecture, I went to the program. It used to be in the hostel. So for my lectures, 7 or 8 people would come. And for prasadam, 50 people would come. Some people would also open the door in the middle of the lecture and see me and say, "Hey, lecture not yet over." They'll close the door in anger and go. They would look at me as an obstacle between them and prasad. That day, for my lecture, 50 people were sitting. It was a house full for the lecture. I asked, "Am I in the right room? I've never seen such a crowd. What's this?" They said, "Of course, we are for your lecture." I said, "What brings you here?" And then they said, "Today the results came." And they took the name of that student. That guy passed the exam. All of us have now got conviction that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, how can he pass? There is no way he can pass. Your Krishna is doing something. We want to know what is that. So not only he passed, he also got admission in post-graduation, which shocked 10 other people. Then I told him, "Now you have got post-graduation admission. You put a lot of load on Krishna in undergrad. At least in post-graduation you study." And he studied well, and then he got gold medal in whole university. So when people hear this kind of story, that you approach Krishna in the temple, you pray to him, and then your desires get fulfilled, they feel, "Wow, yes, this is the Krishna I want to connect with." Yeah, that's the purpose of my coming to the temple. Someone who will fix my problems. But after the Gita was spoken, within a few days, Arjuna's 16-year-old son Abhimanyu died. He was killed mercilessly by 5 or 6 warriors in an unceremonious manner, in an unjust manner, against the ethics of battle. And when Arjuna heard this, he was devastated. He put his bow and arrows down. He was crying. He heard the Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, and Krishna was right there driving his chariot. How could the person who heard the Gita lose his 16-year-old son? Krishna is supposed to be all good. What's going on here? And then as Arjuna was crying, Krishna stood next to Arjuna and Krishna started crying. Arjuna looked at Krishna and said, "My son died, I am crying. Why are you crying?" Krishna said, "I just spoke the Gita to you and explained how the soul is eternal. In spite of that you are crying. Seeing that I am crying. Then what did you understand?" So therefore, just because there is a temple, and just because you start chanting, and just because you start praying, doesn't mean you are insured against adversity. Just because you are coming to the temple, just because you chant the name, just because you do all kinds of pious things, doesn't mean you are insured for prosperity. So the purpose of creating holy places and temples, or any kind of spiritual places in any tradition, is to underscore and underline and highlight the principle that the greatest asset which we as human beings have is not money, is not the asset of status, is not the asset of position, is not the asset of property, is not the asset of political influence, is not the asset of great education, is not the asset of beauty, is not the asset of health or wealth, but the greatest asset we all of us have as human beings is the asset of hope. Asha. Hope is the most powerful asset. And all spiritual places across all traditions exist simply to help the human beings preserve that asset of hope within, for those who have lost it, to help them discover it. For those who have discovered, to help them grow it. And therefore, we are all helping people grow in their journey of hope. Ta Krishna Vahe Vasudeva Agate Swayam Vyavartanta Yatha Tamorave. And therefore Krishna is born as the 8th son of Vasudeva and Devaki, who lose 6 children one after another. It can be a devastating experience. It can be a hope-shattering experience to lose not one but 6 children. But Vasudeva is called Tatascha Shauri Bhagavat Prachodita Sutam Samadaya Cha Sutika Grihat. Vasudeva is described here as Shauri, one who is brave. And there is no record of Vasudeva winning a single battle. Forget battle, there is no record of Vasudeva shooting an arrow. There is no record of Vasudeva lifting a sword. And he is called brave? For what? So, from the perspective of ancient wisdom, bravery is not about how many weapons you fire. Bravery is not about how many enemies you kill. Bravery is about how, in the midst of being attacked by situations which can overwhelm a person, one refuses to accept defeat, stand up and continue fighting with unlimited burning hope. That is what it means to be brave as per the Vedic Sanatana Dharma tradition. And therefore Krishna agrees to appear as Vasudeva's son because he wants to be associated with someone who is brave, who is showing and demonstrating that hope. Although the situation is that of being totally hopeless. Many of you are aware that when Kamsa, the brother of Devaki, was riding on the chariot and taking Devaki and Vasudeva on the chariot, suddenly there was a sound in the sky, Akashvani. And that sound in the sky said to Kamsa, the 8th son of Devaki will be the cause of your death, Kamsa. And then Kamsa became terrified and he puts Devaki and Vasudeva in jail and terrorizes them and kills all the children. So I was giving this pastime in a lecture on Janmashtami at IIT Bombay many years ago. And after the lecture, one student came to me and said, I had a better idea, When Kamsa heard that, pronouncement from the sky that the 8th son would be the cause of his death, he should have put Vasudeva in one jail, Devaki in another jail. There would not be a single son. Where is the question of 8th son? Why couldn't Kamsa think of such a simple idea? I said, what to do? He didn't go to IIT like you. But the idea of these scriptural pastimes is to highlight that as you are being trained in the modern educational system to gain wealth, to gain status, to gain property, to gain influence, to gain popularity, to gain relationships, there may not be too many people who will help you understand how to gain hope. And that's what all the scriptures are actually focused upon. how we can actually develop this hope. And so Krishna says to Arjuna, you begin the process by first of all tolerating. And what is the idea of tolerating? If a fireman is sitting in his fire brigade office and a phone rings and he picks up the phone, what will most likely that phone call be? Help for what? Fire. What are the chances that he lifts the phone and someone says, I love you? No. He's sitting in the fire brigade. If someone is sitting in the police station and the phone rings, most likely it is about a crime. Someone is sitting in emergency in a hospital, the phone rings, it's about an accident or death. So when you are prepared to deal with a certain situation, you are trained to deal with that. And just like a fireman is trained to deal with fire, a policeman is trained to deal with crime, and a doctor is trained to deal with disease and death. Those who are spiritual practitioners are systematically trained in both knowledge and application to deal with change. That is what is known as spirituality. Spirit which doesn't change can only counteract that which changes matter. That's why spirituality, because only water can counteract fire. And therefore only spirit which is unchanging can counteract the constant changes imposed by matter which is constantly changing. Amanistarite tomar iha agaman parama dayalu tumi patita pavan. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he comes in front of Ramananda, he says, my dear Lord, I am so glad that you are here, because by your association I will now gradually realize what is the essence of spiritual life, and I will try to elevate my consciousness above all these constant changes. So that's the idea of spiritual life, that as we are practicing spiritual life, we are trying to tolerate the changes, and we are all expecting change at every moment. And every moment we are preparing that when the change comes, let me always remember, all these changes may happen, but three things will not change. The soul, the super soul Krishna, and the relationship of service between the soul and the super soul. And therefore, let me remain patient and tolerant in this situation. When I joined ashram, I was sent to the kitchen to serve. A month later, one more brahmachari joined. He was also sent to the kitchen. He was a well-built person, so I asked him to roll chapatis. Make the chapati dough and roll chapatis. So after 1 week he came to me and started complaining. And he said, I am such a talented speaker. In my village, when I would give lectures, whole village would appreciate. I joined ISKCON to become a preacher, a lecturer, not to roll chapati. I said, why you are telling me? I am also in kitchen rolling chapati. So what's the point you and me talking? You go and complain to the in charge. He said, no, if I complain, he'll give me 1 hour lecture. I'm just revealing my heart to you. Again, after 2 days, he came and complained. I joined ISKCON to be preacher, not to roll chapati. After 1 month, he came with his bag and said, I'm leaving. I said, you're leaving? Why? Because I didn't come to roll chapati. That was like a big deal for him. 10 years later, I met him at a program. He came running to me. He said, after I left the temple, I got married. After marriage, my wife got back pain every day at home. I am making chapati. And he said, maybe I should have waited for some more time. So therefore, material knowledge means constantly trying to manipulate and change the circumstances. We have limited control over circumstances. We have unlimited control over our consciousness. So therefore, temples exist to help us connect with our own deepest hidden energies of the spirit. And once that energy is unleashed and unlocked, there is an unending flow of hope. And just like the Ganges flows from the Himalayas down to the Bay of Bengal, nothing can stop the Ganges flow. The rocks will be there and so many other kinds of obstacles will be there, but the Ganges will always find its way around it. And that's the nature of the flow of the river of hope. It just finds its way around all the difficulties, all the challenges, because nothing can stop and lock up the consciousness. And that in Bhagavad Gita Krishna calls as Sthita Pragya. Sthita Pragya means one who is supremely tolerant in all situations of prosperity and adversity and focused only on one thing, how to serve and please Krishna. So therefore His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON temples all over the world to help people understand the context of why the temples exist. That if you do not understand the spirit behind the temple, then you will come to the temple or a church or a mosque or a synagogue as a ritual, because you will miss the spirit. And when you add the spirit to the ritual, then it becomes spiritual. And that's the whole idea of the Bhagavad Gita being spoken to enable Arjuna to retain his most precious asset which he was losing, hope. And that's the whole idea of the Gita being spoken to Arjuna on the battlefield, because all of us tend to lose hope when we experience internal battles and conflicts, especially with respect to our constantly changing identities, which we are trying to stop from changing, but inevitably it has to change. And that's the whole idea of Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, as spoken by Krishna to Arjuna in the Gita. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Yeah, so we have a few minutes of questions. Anyone has any questions? Yeah, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you for a wonderful lecture. Made me laugh and cry, everything.
Hare Krishna.
So I have a question. I started realizing that I've been a few years around the ISKCON and lectures, and it seems I'm still in the mode of ignorance or passion. I think now more passion. Through that consciousness, I hear things in a sort of perspective. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, spiritual person doesn't get upset about the material losses, like a loss of a relative or something. And but the tendency being the mode of rajas, like it's like, okay, so I'm spiritually bypassing, kind of like okay, so I'm doing it. And I started realizing, well, but Mother Kunti, she was crying her eyes out so many times, even though she was the greatest devotee of Krishna. So that human aspect was still there, like she would feel. So I don't know what is my question about it. I guess I want to hear if it's what is that balance of because I feel like I'm still paralyzed as Arjuna, even though I've heard Bhagavad Gita, and the Bhagavad Gita teaches about the tolerance which helps us to wait and get there, but I'm still feel like I'm paralyzed, and I try to find the guidance
Right.
Like I'm not in material world yet, but not in spiritual. And it's like my consciousness playing with me of hearing things maybe
Right.
incorrectly. Yeah.
Yeah, a young married couple came to Prabhupada. They just got married and, this was in the early 70s, and Prabhupada asked the lady, was very young, 20, 21-year-old. Prabhupada asked her, so who do you love more, Krishna or your husband? And then the lady started crying. And Prabhupada said, what happened? She said, neither. And then she said, I just got married, I don't know him so much, and Krishna consciousness also I am new. I'm just following whatever is being told. So I don't have emotions in either situation. So that is a situation when we are developing a relationship as a sadhaka, and we are using our logic, our reason to take steps, but at the same time we have to understand that there are emotions involved. So the process of sadhana means that which will invoke the original spiritual emotions. But till then, all the human level interactions act as the support system, which is very important. So therefore, community is that which provides that support, where the body, the mind needs to be nourished. So therefore, absorption in sadhana, consistency in service, seva, and sensitivity in dealings. All three are equally important. Right? So, not everything is like cut and dry, like only logic. A logician went into a village, and in the village he saw that in India you have a bull which goes around in irrigation, and there is like a mechanical system by which water is brought out for irrigation. So the bull goes round and round, and then the water comes out. So he saw this bull moving around, and he asked this farmer, what is this bull doing, going round and round? The farmer said, it is part of the mechanical irrigation process. There is a lift pump, and when it goes around, then the pump moves and the water comes out. So the logician looked at the farmer and said, the bull has a bell around its neck. Why is that? And the farmer said, well, if the bull becomes bored after moving around and stops, and I am somewhere else, I can hear that the ring of the bell is not there. I know that the bull is not working. So I'll come and then move the bull again. Then I'll do my other stuff. So then the bull will continue. And when I suddenly see that, okay, the sound is not there, I can come and then make sure the bull moves. That's why the bell is there. So the logician said, such a fool you are. If the bull stands at one place and shakes his head, the ringing of the bell will still be there. What you will do then? The farmer said, he's a bull, not a logician like you. He will not think like this. So sometimes, as human beings, we do so much of analysis, and that analysis goes so deep that we become paralysis. There is paralysis by analysis. So therefore, there is a place for knowledge and analysis, but then ultimately there has also got to be emotion and action. So therefore, all of these have to be done in a balanced manner. And as I said, to be spiritually absorbed, to be emotionally sensitive, and to be socially and politically alert. Krishna consciousness is meant to create holistic human beings in society. You have to be spiritually absorbed, but the proof of your spiritual absorption is that spiritual absorption making you emotionally sensitive? And is it making you socially and politically alert? So spiritual life is not a matter of going away from responsibility, but becoming responsible to the next level. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So it's time, no? 8 o'clock? There is time? Or it opens at 8? Jai. Jai Shri Rukmini Dwarkadhish Bhagavan ki, Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Tai Go Premanande. Now we'll do Kirtan. Hey. Okay, if you invite me, okay, you can set it up. Harmonium. Nice to see you. Play Mridan for me. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.